Hey gamer friends, I'm Danielle.
And I'm Josiah.
And we are ready to roll.
We are talking about campaign games or scenario-based games today.
We just kind of wanted to talk about like some of the benefits of playing campaign games, some of the drawbacks of playing campaign games, like why we play them, that kind of thing. So let's start off with the benefits.
So you get lots of hours of playing time.
So many. You could potentially play for, I don't know, some of them are like 80 hours or something.
Tons and tons of hours. That kind of leads into the second benefit that we discussed, which is getting a lot of bang for your buck.
Right, because if you take that price tag and you divide it amongst all of the hours playing, you're actually not paying very much per hour. And then if you take that price and you compare it to other forms of entertainment, like if you were going to the movies.
Like dinner and a movie.
Even just a movie, like, you know, the cost of a ticket or maybe popcorn, you're looking at a higher price tag for a 2-hour movie than you are for a campaign game.
That's right. We think there's a ton of value in playing these campaign games, these big box legacy and campaign and scenario driven games. We think there's a lot in it.
Also, one of the benefits of a campaign game is the immersion. There a lot of times they're story driven. And so they're trying to immerse you into a whole experience.
That's right.
And many times they have like upgraded components because it is a higher price point. You're paying for the extra components, the better components, I should say, of the game.
You're paying for like a VIP experience, kind of.
I mean, it depends, but I always think of VIP as like, you know, like the Kickstarter or whatever, which a lot of these campaign games do fall into that.
Because you play a lot of hours in it, you tend to get more and more immersed in the game as it goes along.
Especially the story. Like if you're invested in the story, you're going to be in it. But the story is really important then to a campaign game.
It is.
Because
it better have a good story.
It better have a good story. Otherwise, what's the point?
That's right. And you get to dive into a lot of the strategy of the game when you play so many hours in it and you're so invested in it. You really kind of get into the nitty gritty of the strategy, which we love. Being able to sort of optimize your play as you go along. It's sort of like an adventurer who is gaining more experience as they go. You get better at your job. You get better at your adventuring and your skills.
Actually, you talking about that reminds me a lot of Gloomhaven. Because in Gloomhaven, you know, you are leveling up your character, yes, but you have these cards and you kind of have to learn how each of the characters work. So maybe at first you're a little clunky with it, but then like as you learn, if I play these cards together, I can do really interesting combos, or I can do this, and you start to really get a feel for that specific character.
That's right.
And so that's really fun.
And even in Gloomhaven, you play a character for a long time. It's a while if you want. You don't have to, but you have these cards in Gloomhaven where if you meet these certain requirements, and they're kind of hard to meet.
They are.
But once you meet them, you can actually retire your character. So it's like you've taken your character through this long adventure, and then they're retiring from it. And so it's really fun. I love this style of game.
A lot of times these games come with minis, and that's really fun. And we are not into painting minis. I tried once and it didn't go very well. My sister is actually really, really good at painting minis. What I need to do is like see if I can entice her.
To Talon is really
Talon is really good
at painting minis.
Yes. So I just need to like be like, here are my minis. I am not so good at it. But that's one of the things that I love. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Okay.
But that's one of the things that's really fun about campaign games is a lot of times you have these like, you actually have the physical character that you get to play with.
However, these campaign games don't come without their drawbacks.
For sure. Yeah, I can see why some people would really not enjoy campaign games. Like they are definitely not for everybody.
That's right.
100%.
One of the top ones is lots of playing hours. So if you're the type of board gamer who wants to play a game and then go on to the next thing, these are not the games for you.
Absolutely not.
Because you will be putting lots of hours into it if you want to play the whole thing.
Sure.
That is definitely a drawback for some board gamers.
Yeah, or if you just feel like I don't have enough time to dedicate to that, like, or maybe I want to experience several different games and I just don't have the time to do that, that would definitely be a drawback. And also the cost. So just like they were benefits, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. They are more expensive games.
Yeah.
And so if you don't want to spend that much money on a game, then obviously that's going to be a bad choice.
That's
for
right.
you.
You can pay anywhere from $100, $120 all the way up to $200, $300 for some of these games.
I mean, some of those Kickstarters, if you're doing like the all-in backing and stuff, they can get really expensive.
So it does have a big cost to it. Another drawback is it's kind of difficult to get it to the table.
For sure it is.
You saw the thumbnail. It's a big box.
Yes.
A lot of them are big box games with lots and lots of components. The setup and the teardown
can
be taxing.
Yes.
For sure.
When you're, especially like, okay, you come home from work on a weeknight and you're like, I want to play a game. Nobody really wants to get out a game like that. They just don't, because you're having to take 30 minutes just to set up the game to play, and that's just not fun.
It's not.
I mean, there are people out there who like truly enjoy setting up games.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that's a lot.
Now I will say a lot of that, the setup and the teardown of a campaign game, can be mitigated by a couple of things. One that we'll talk about a little later, but one is having a gaming table.
Well, that's true.
Like a vaulted gaming table.
Which we do not have.
We don't have that yet. Want, but don't have.
Right.
But a vaulted gaming table where there's a 3-inch, 4-inch vault that you can put the table topper on, and you can just leave it out.
That's true.
In the game area. You don't have the setup and the teardown.
I feel like there's not a lot of gamers who have that kind of table. I mean, there are those out there. I see them all the time, but I'm just saying, like, you know, that's definitely a luxury that a lot of people don't have.
Big time.
Another drawback of these types of games is some of them require the same gaming group. Not all of them. I know that a lot of games are like, you know, you can have people come in and come out, but it's really, the experience is a lot more fun when you can have the same people playing all the time.
Right.
And that is not always feasible to get people back together for a campaign
on a regular basis. Yeah. Take it from a dungeon master playing D&D. Scheduling a group to get together on a consistent basis is very difficult.
It really is.
That is definitely a drawback. It's easy for us. We live together.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of the same scheduling. And so, but if you have other people that aren't living together, then it can be tricky to have a consistent scheduled game night.
And I think that, like, if you wait too long before like you play again, sometimes you have to, now we have to remember some of these rules. I mean, if you're going a couple of months in between and maybe you haven't played it very much, you're relearning stuff. And then that's a whole other barrier to getting the game to the table. Like a game like Gloomhaven, there's a lot to learn when you first jump into that kind of game.
Yeah.
And so if you're having to relearn any of that, it's a lot.
It is. So how do we go about choosing a campaign game or a scenario-based game?
The very first thing I think of is theme, because I think that is probably what's going to draw you into that campaign.
Right.
If you like the theme, you're going to be like, ooh, that looks good. The art is part of that. Like when a box has really awesome art, I'm like, ooh, I want to play that. I was immediately thinking, we had it on our most anticipated of 2025, but what is it called? Something Iridia. Iridia. That drew me in immediately because of the art. I was like, that looks awesome.
It does.
And then I read about it and, oh, that sounds cool. You know, that kind of thing. And so I think theme art, that's gonna draw me in first.
Yeah. Another thing that really pulls us into campaign games are if they have a base game that wasn't a campaign game that they made a campaign or legacy game of. For instance, Clank or Pandemic, we loved the base version of those games. So when they came out with a legacy version or a campaign style version of those games, we knew we were going to love it.
Yeah.
Most likely.
Yeah, most likely. And so, that's a quick way to get us to jump into a campaign for sure. And then just, of course, like any kind of like recommendation from other people, that's going to be something that is going to, is going to influence me.
Sure.
And maybe I saw it on a video and people were talking about, oh, these games are so good, or we have a friend who is like, we really loved this, then it's going to pique my interest for sure.
Or if it's highly rated on BGG or something like that.
I might look into it a little bit more. Sometimes they win awards. It makes me look at it a little bit more. That doesn't mean we'll necessarily play it or want it, but it does definitely influence for sure.
Another thing we wanted to talk about is how we get it to be played.
Yeah, because it is so hard to get to the table. How do you get a campaign game played?
Right. Yeah. One thing we're doing is having a dedicated night.
Yeah, that was part of our New Year's resolutions for board gaming.
Yeah.
Was to have a dedicated campaign night.
Yeah. So we have a night that we say, okay, we are going to get a big game on the table that is a campaign or scenario-based game, because we have several of them that we want to play through. And if we aren't disciplined to do that, we're not going to do it.
And one thing that we also do is organize the box. Some games are really good about like organizers and making sure everything fits perfectly. But then some games just don't really give you any kind of indication about how to put things back in the box. But we try and stay extremely organized with how we put things back in to make it really easy to pull those things back out and set back up. And so it takes a little bit more time at the end of the night when you're putting everything away.
Right.
But it's very much worth it when you're trying to set up and you actually want to play. Right. And so that's one thing that we do. And some people buy extra organizers, and we have done that in the past for a couple of games. But typically, we just try and make sure it's really organized in the box.
Yeah, there are people who make aftermarket inserts for games to keep it really organized. And so that's one thing you can do. We do everything. We put a lot of things in baggies.
Yeah.
To keep it organized.
We also have those little, what are those called? Those little component trays.
Yeah.
And they have lids that fit good. And so there we have a few games where we've actually just leave those in the box because it's a lot easier that way.
Yeah.
And those are a little bit cheaper than those, like the full box things that you can purchase. Just those little component trays are a lot cheaper than that.
Absolutely. And we've talked about this before, but there are some games that have an instruction manual on how to put it back in the box.
I love it.
And it is so helpful.
Yes.
I wish every designer of big box games would do this.
Yes. How do I get this back in now that I've got it all out?
That's
and a lot of times you're punching things out, and so they don't fit back in the exact way that you pulled them out.
That's right.
That would be very helpful.
It is really helpful.
So we thought we would talk about some of the campaign games that we've actually played through or played partially. We haven't finished all of these.
That's right.
We've talked a lot about the Legacy, Pandemic, and Clank. We just talked about Gloomhaven. We have played through all of Gloomhaven.
That's right.
And then we do have Frosthaven.
We've played through a little bit of that.
Yes.
That's one that we need to finish.
That one I feel like is a little bit heavier even than Gloomhaven.
Yeah, I think it is. Another campaign game that we haven't finished yet is Sleeping Gods, Distant Skies. It's a really fun game. We just kind of lost it.
Yeah. It's like we started playing it and then we went on to other things and then just never brought it back.
Never came back.
And not because we didn't like it.
Yeah.
It was just we got busy playing other games or doing other things and just kind of...
It fell off our plate.
It did. It just kind of forgot about it. But that is one that we hope to maybe this year get it back out and finish the campaign. We may have to start it over.
Yeah, we might have to.
Because it's been quite a while. But I did like that one because it had a little bit different mechanism with the airplane and traveling. Yeah. And it has the book that you're going through instead of trying to set up all of the different tile maps. Yeah, it's all in a book. And that is just wonderful.
Yeah, it was really helpful. Yeah, that's definitely one. Another one that we've played a lot through is Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. However, we didn't love this one.
We didn't.
It's an app-driven game. It was a little bit clunky for us.
I just felt like I couldn't really get into it the way that I really wanted to. Yeah, I don't know.
It wasn't for lack of theme.
No, we love the theme.
It was the mechanics and the working of the game. It just didn't really work great.
Yeah.
So that one was a little disappointing.
We have played The Adventures of Robin Hood. That one is really interesting because it's like it looks like a novel. Yeah. Like you have a hardback book in there, and that's where it tells you the story, and you go to different places within that novel as you're working through the game. That one is, I feel like, a really good family game. I don't know what age would be a good starter for that, but like I just feel like it's a little bit more accessible. That's a great word. Accessible to get people into.
Yeah, it's a great game. I really like that one.
It was really fun.
One of the very first campaign games that we played was Legends of Andor. Mm-hmm. It was really fun, and it's a little bit lighter, I would say, on the campaign side of things.
Yeah, I mean, definitely we played it as a family when our girls were, they were older though. They weren't little at all.
Teens.
So yeah, teens.
Yeah.
And so and it was perfect for that. That was a really good one for us.
Yep.
We actually had Lost Ruins of Arnak that we purchased the expansion for, and that turned it into a campaign.
Right.
It was the Missing Expedition expansion. That one made Lost Ruins of Arnak more enjoyable for him because he actually didn't love that game,
right,
but he enjoyed the campaign.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. It turned it in cooperative
campaign. Yeah, made a big difference for me in that game. I liked the game, not initially, but it grew on me enough to where I liked it, but it wasn't one of my favorite games. But when we added the expansion, then I really liked it. I thought it was a great game at that point.
So what's the difference between a campaign game and like a scenario-driven game?
So a campaign game is one continuous story arc where you are playing usually a character or maybe one or two characters through the entire story. A scenario-based game is where it's chunked out scenarios that you play that can be connected and usually are, but they're sort of individual.
Yeah, so you can play out that specific scenario, but you don't necessarily feel like, oh, I didn't finish the campaign.
Yeah.
I don't know what the end of the story is. They're stories in and of themselves or just games in and of themselves.
Right. We have some examples of that. Too Many Bones.
Yes.
There's a scenario where you're playing through mini bosses until you get to the main boss, and then you defeat the main boss, and that's it. The main boss is called a tyrant. There are several tyrants in the game.
So, and you get to pick one at the beginning, like which scenario you're playing.
That's right. And so once you finish that scenario, that's the end of the story.
Right.
And then you can pick up another scenario playing a different tyrant.
Yeah. Or you can go back and replay that one again.
Yeah.
They have maybe different setup, and you still build out your character during that session, but it's just that session.
That's right.
We've talked about Sky Team that we finished all the scenarios to. That one adds like different elements as you're playing through different scenarios. Right. So it's not a campaign, it's not all connected. You could go in and play just that scenario and pull that one out if you wanted to.
Yeah, and there's probably 20 or 30 scenarios.
I think there's 20
scenarios in Sky Team. And so each one you can play individually. You can play that scenario and put it away.
Yeah.
And then you can come back and play the next scenario, put it away, and you don't have to have played this one to play this one.
Right.
But you can play them all together, and it feels like a campaign game.
It does.
Yeah.
And then there's like Mansions of Madness, which is also just like specific scenarios. So you choose a scenario at the beginning. It's also app driven.
Yep.
You choose that scenario and you're going to play through that story. And that one is a story.
Yeah.
And you are trying to figure something out, and there's monsters that come out, and maybe you're exploring an area trying to figure out the mystery of some sort.
Yeah. And they're just like short stories.
Yes.
Versus a campaign where it's like one big long arc that you're playing through, and it's all one big long story. So those are kind of the differences between campaign and scenario-driven games, and some examples of those.
Yeah, I enjoy this discussion because sometimes it's good to like look at, why we like certain games and why we play the games that we do. And so, I don't know, it helps us maybe make better choices of which games we pick in the future.
Sure.
I like that.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.
And tell us down below, what is your favorite campaign or scenario-driven game? We would love to hear about that.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.